They are just telling people to speak up. And Merle, right here, this is where family members, they have placed balloons, they placed a teddy bear, flowers to remember that child that was killed right here. One family member writes, "We love you, Tay-Tay," and there's plenty of messages on these balloons. Keep in mind, this is the 29th child killed here in Memphis this year. 29. And people say that is unacceptable.
The blonde boy, 16 years old. Jaden Knox, 10 years old.
Emmanuel Church pastor Leonard Jackson and his wife Sharita read the names of children killed in Memphis this year. Out of 29 names,
Ashley Luckett, 6 years old.
23 were murders, including Tayshawn Hodrick.
He was 12 years old. He was loved by everybody.
Gwendolyn Lee is the aunt of the Humes Middle School student, now the 29th child killed violently in Memphis this year. Tayshawn played football for the Memphis Cowboys, a program designed to keep boys out of trouble. Looney Avenue, where Tayshawn was murdered, is quiet now, but neighbors describe it as a rough neighborhood where they hear gunshots constantly.
One right here, one up there, one up over the window.
These are bullet holes from previous shootings at Pastor Eddie Brooks's home.
Why are you killing these babies? Why? Asen Golden, 6 years old. A kid has never had a chance at life.
Memphis Police Director Mike Rawlings says police can't solve this problem alone. He says it starts with parenting and mentorship programs.
I heard Stevie Moore, doing an interview, and Stevie was saying that, where's the outrage? 29 children have been killed, and there's no outrage.
And you can see right here, there is a Sky Cop cam in the area. My source told me yesterday that police are looking through surveillance video, and we're going to continue to keep you updated on that. But police say they are looking for a person in a Nissan, a red car, and that person you heard from in the story, Pastor Brooks, he says that he did see a burgundy car in this area. At 6 o'clock, we're going to hear from pastors who say they want people to speak up. Live in North Memphis, Siobhan Riley, Fox 13 News.
For $500.
Tanisha Spencer, a mother of 3, gets emotional after doing what she calls counting her blessings.
Oh my goodness. Oh Lord have mercy. $500. Wow. Oh wow. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, God.
Spencer worked 2 jobs so she could get a home of her own after living with relatives. As soon as she moved into her own house, COVID-19 left her in the same position as millions of Americans across the country struggling to pay the rent.
I haven't saw that much money in a while.
The Mack family gave away $500 to $600 to nearly a dozen of these West Memphis families who couldn't pay the rent after recent layoffs. Melody Mack Houston took to social media asking for referrals after hearing the stories of families in need.
The one person that I know is facing eviction, she hasn't even been able to pay her April rent. And so they've been threatening to put her out.
Spencer says she's only receiving about $80 a week for unemployment. So every little bit of cash means she and her children can keep a roof over their head.
It's been hard on me. And my kids as well. I'm thankful though, I'm happy. I really am.
Merle, so many families I spoke with had the same reaction as that woman you just heard from. Everyone crying, just happy to receive that money. The mayor of West Memphis says he hopes this encourages other business owners who are not struggling to do the same thing. Merle?
West Memphis, some stories out of there have been enough to enlarge your heart 3 times over. They are amazing acts of kindness coming out of there, as well as throughout the Mid-South. Thank you for sharing that story, Siobhan.
Daryl, what's different this time around is that this targets counties across the country where COVID is spreading at a high rate. here in Shelby County, we're averaging about 447 cases a day. Now that's up a lot. And one woman says that she needs all the help she can get.
Well, the pandemic, I lost my job, I lost my home, I lost a lot, and you have to start all the way back over, and it's hard.
Just when Letitia Jordan thought the worst thing that could happen was losing her job during the pandemic, her life took an unexpected turn when a fire destroyed her home. Jordan knows firsthand what families are dealing with during a gloomy pandemic, especially those struggling to pay the rent.
Well, I seen a family that was homeless, and she had like 10 kids. You know, it's so unfortunate because there's nothing you can do but try as hard as you can.
The CDC just announced a new but temporary moratorium on evictions. This is not the same as the moratorium that expired over the weekend. The current one aims to protect tenants in counties with substantial and high levels of coronavirus transmission.
It's really sad and unfortunate, and I wish it was more that people can do to help. I wish it was more that I could do for myself to help.
More than 11 million Americans are behind on the rent. Jordan says there's no way she can afford a new home right now because she was struggling to pay the bills before the previous house burned.
I'm doing what I can right now, trying to get back on my feet.
You're right, Daryl. Very wild video. One neighbor told us that he stopped counting after he heard 100 gunshots go off. Another neighbor told us they heard 200 gunshots. These are some of the bullet holes. This hit a home. You can see 1, 2, 3, and there's plenty other places in this neighborhood that were hit.
Shot just rung out. I'm talking about numerous shots.
This surveillance video from a nearby neighbor shows several people firing shots in broad daylight in the 3300 block of Dungreen Street last Tuesday.
I just seen them standing in the yard, but they had mask over the face.
Memphis police say several cars and homes like this one were hit. This man, who doesn't want to show his face on camera because of fear of retaliation, says he immediately leaped to the ground inside his home after seeing men firing shots on his street.
I was just laying on the floor, looking at the door from the floor. It basically just shots started just ringing out.
So you ducked?
Yes. Went back to my childhood, learned how to crawl.
Memphis police say 2 cars were caught on video pulling up near Dungreen Street. Several people got out and fired shots in the direction of 2 other men. Another man returned fire. This man says he saw kids running into their home when the shots rang out.
I guess they were getting out of harm's way.
You saw them getting out of the way?
Yes. Running back across the street, I guess to their houses, getting out the way.
And neighbors say the shooting lasted for about 5 minutes. Now, it is obvious from looking at that video that some pretty powerful weapons were used in that shooting. I showed that video to a law enforcement expert. I'll have his response at 6 o'clock. Live from Parkway Village, Siobhan Riley, Fox 13 News. We've seen these experiments for the past 30 years where psychologists take a white doll and a black doll. They ask young African-American girls which doll do they consider beautiful. I did that experiment with the 5- and 6-year-old in Fraser. Both had similar responses. The response made one mother so uncomfortable, she asked us not to air her daughter's interview. The other mother allowed us to share her 6-year-old story. Which one do you consider the smart Barbie doll?
This one, because on TV she's in school.
And which one is not the smart Barbie doll?
This one.
Why?
Because she's not on TV and she's not on school.
6-year-old Zori Austin's response is no different than the reply we've been hearing from African-American girls for decades.
Which one did you tell me you consider pretty?
This one.
That one, why?
Because she has my favorite color and their faces doesn't look the same. And she's Barbie.
She's Barbie? Why is she Barbie?
Because she has the same face and looks like on TV.
What did you think about that experiment?
Well, she does see the white Barbie on TV because, you know, it's the show called Barbie's Dream House Adventures or whatever like that. So, and she's the main character and that doll is Barbie. So I was like, oh, okay. So, but then when she was like, oh, the darker Barbie isn't smart, and I was just like, where is that coming from?
Mikkel Harris is a licensed family health psychologist. She says the struggles African American women face in society stem from a dark past. Often, it makes women feel like they're not beautiful, not good enough, and not valued.
Ideas about colorism and associated racism are so deeply entrenched in the fabric of America, beginning in, with colonization of the New World to slavery. And it's been passed down from generation to generation that we're still hearing stories that our grandmothers told.
Which Barbie doll is not your favorite Barbie doll to play with? What is it going to take for women of color to feel they do matter, they are valued, even in their schools, on their jobs?
Within families, we've got to talk about race, whether we're white or anything else on the color spectrum. We need to have conversations to let people know that we are valuable just the way we are.
Sharon Moore and her two daughters struggle with this topic daily, particularly because they live in Collierville, where they are the minority.
I remember being at school and there was a white young lady and she was comparing me to a lighter skinned girl, and she said, oh, you're pretty, but like you're pretty for like your type. And I was trying to comprehend, what does that mean?
13-year-old Chloe Moore recalls a conversation with her teacher before she and her family moved to Tennessee from Michigan.
I used the word evaporation, and she said, don't use that word, use the word that you use. And I was confused.
True story.
I didn't really know what it meant, considering I was only in 2nd grade. I was 8 years old. I was trying to figure out, what does she mean by the words that I use? That is the word that I used.
Really excited. Kristen Graves just started talking to her 3 children about race, especially because her adopted niece is black.
Take them to the Lorraine, talk to them about, you see people who look different from you, their skin may be darker than yours, but we're all the same. And if you ever see anyone mistreating someone because of the way they look, you speak up for them.
What kind of conversations do you have with your child moving forward?
Probably limit how much we watch TV, read more, because there's so many books that have African American characters in them and, beautifully illustrated.
I think that our society, I'm speaking of America only, is starting to shift a little bit with, media exposure. For example, what comes to mind is Viola Davis and her, serving in a leading role as a darker skinned woman. I think that the more we can see ourselves on screen, that's going to make a difference.
Harris says she presented data to the Shelby County Schools mental health team. It shows African American girls start feeling this way as young as 2 years old. The 5-year-old not featured in this story, who we interviewed, referred to the black doll as uneducated. The 2 young girls also said they loved the white Barbie's blue eyes and blonde hair.